So, the Peterborough by-election, I suspect, was meant to be a lot more, shall we say, bigger impact for Farage and co. They were expecting to win that seat, but they didn't. And as we've said before, there is no prize for second place in that type of, race. You either win or you lose. And ironically, Farage has gone around, as I said, complaining unironically that he should not ignore the, I think it's the 23% who voted for the Brexit Party. And, of course, as we know, the day started for Farage at a 5-star hotel where he dined and had breakfast. He then delivered a letter to the Prime Minister, which we'll be going through. He then lost and then had to, and this is true, hide in a toilet because he was that embarrassed about losing. So, so spread that around because that is completely true, that he had to go and hide in a toilet because that's how embarrassed he was by losing. You then had him go on the same day. Instead of sending this and putting it in an envelope and a postage letter, he then went to number 10 in person to deliver this letter. Now, this was purely a publicity stunt. 100% pure publicity stunt. And of course that day ended with him having to hide in a toilet. I will keep on repeating that because it shows you what an absolute coward Farage is. He doesn't want to be interviewed when it was his biggest moment of loss. So what did he actually send? What was this letter that he sent? Well, it's called Change Politics for Good. And it goes like this. Dear Prime Minister, as you know, the Brexit Party won the European elections via a very substantial margin. However, that's not true. First of all, as we've said before, Farage and the Brexit Party massively underperformed at the EU elections. Second of all, they didn't win the biggest majority. Remain parties actually won the biggest majority in the EU elections. So that's, first of all, starts out with a complete lie. So, it continues, we stood on a clear platform with 3 simple messages. 1, restore trust in democracy. How? You didn't really have a manifesto, and just saying to restore trust in democracy, how are you going to do that? You might want to start, Mr. Farage, with maybe saying and releasing where you got all this money from to start the Brexit Party. Maybe you should actually release all your financial information and about where you've been getting all your money from, because that's one of the things a lot of people would really want to do to restore trust in their politicians. So maybe, Nigel, you should be the first to step forward. Number 2, a WTO Brexit, which no one wants. No one wants a WTO Brexit. Nope. And number 3, some of our elected MEPs to play a significant role on the negotiating team from here. You're an MEP, but you're not an MP. So why should you get a role in negotiating tables? As I've said before, it absolutely shouldn't. But one of the big things I've said that potentially Theresa May or any other Prime Minister could do is just give Nigel the role of the Brexit thing. Go, here you go. That's your office. You've got to report to Parliament and watch him fail. Because he will absolutely fail in these roles. Farage talks a big game, but he has never shown that he's actually capable of delivering anything politically. So, Anyway, he continues. Hang on, let me get this. I'm trying to get it to an acceptable zoom level where it's sort of readable at the same time. There we go. So, we now have the most recent and winning democratic mandate on Brexit. Except you don't have a mandate on Brexit. Remain parties won more MPs and more percentage of the vote. If it had been the referendum, then Remain would have won. If the first past the post system had been used, we would have a parliamentary majority of 240 seats. This is quite fun. So first of all, even though there was a bigger turnout, it was not the same as there would have been for a general election. And here's the thing. A European parliamentary election is not the same as election for an MP, as the past two by-elections have shown. Both time these head Brexiteers have basically come out and made the claim, very boldly and loudly, that the Remain candidate would not win their seat, and instead, what's happened? Both times Labour have kept their seats. So what's going on there? Well, I'll tell you exactly what's going on. Is that a one-issue party will not succeed, whereas Labour in both those by-elections both ran on a local issues platform. And guess what? They won. And it's also quite funny because, once again, Farage made the point of, when he was the leader of UKIP, that we should change our first past the post system to the way that we do the MEP elections, which is sort of a percentage vote. So all the parties vote, highest gets so many seats, and then so many seats, then so many seats, so many seats. Why? Because this would have given UKIP actual MEPs. I think it would have given them about 12 or 13 MPs or something like that. So it's kind of funny that Farage is now saying, you see, we would, and he can see his clear attack. What he is trying to threaten is that this is somehow that he can replicate this at a general election. So far, both the by-elections, which, again, I'll reiterate this claim, Brexiteers have said that they would somehow sweep the field. They have not. And a MP election and a general election is completely different from a European election. So don't let that confool you. But he's also trying to say, oh, look, we'll sweep into power. The idea that, as Farage has been saying, that the two-party system is now broken, we've never had a two-party system in the UK. We've always had a multiple-party system. The difference is that in the first past the post system, smaller parties always have a bigger problem in trying to get traction. So you've got to literally start and focus and win one MEP seat at a time. If you can't do that, then you're not going to get anywhere. And one of the things that is interesting when we look at the statistics is Farage doesn't seem to have the groundswell that a lot of journalists have attributed to him, and that he himself says that he has. And like I say, we'll go over that in the article when we go with it, but that's something to bear in mind. So anyway, he continues. The electorate have asked us to come into the negotiating team, and we are ready to do so immediately. No one's asked him to do that, by the way. This is especially the case given the lack of activity and focus due to the leadership contest. There is a Brexit minister. His job hasn't gone away, and both these past two Brexit ministers have basically been ardent Brexiteers who have tried to throw their weight around and proven that we were right, saying you will not be able to get a good a deal from the European Union. It is just not possible. So both Dominic Raab and oh Christ, I want to say David Davis. Was it David Davis? Oh, I can see his name, but I can't for the life of me remember his name now. But yeah, both of them, Brexiteers, failed spectacularly. Remember, Dominic Raab in particular wrote a book about how Britain leaving the European Union would somehow unchain and unshackle the United Kingdom to roll forth on the high financial seas. Hasn't really happened. As we've said, more and more companies are losing faith in the United Kingdom and are leaving. The car industry is completely losing faith in the UK and are ultimately, as we've seen, shutting down plants and even moving parts and offices and other vital infrastructure to the continent. That's going to speed up. So that's another industry that we have lost primarily due to Brexit. Where are we? Yes. We should firstly review the state of a no-deal preparations and help advance them as required. So no-deal preparations have already been in effect. So first of all, Farage seems to be advocating that this hasn't happened, but it has. And we are continually throwing huge money at lots of money at people to come in and consult, because we are trying to prepare for every possible outcome, and it's showing that all these outcomes are not going to be good. So under a no-deal outcome, we know this because the government have released 2 impact assessments that both show it's not going to be good, and no one wants a no-deal Brexit. This is just a complete fantasy and shows the reality of what these hardcore Brexiteers like Nigel Farage always wanted, to basically deliver the UK into a regulatoryless state, which no one really wants. He said publicly, well, not publicly, but he said privately that he wants to get rid of the NHS. He said prior to the referendum and during the referendum that us becoming like Norway would be entirely acceptable. But here we are. To no deal preparations and to help the advance as required, to give confidence to the nation that we will be fully ready. We're not going to be fully ready. Calais, our most important port, as well as Dover, are not ready to go for a no deal. There would be absolute chaos. But there you go. I trust you will agree that the country should not suffer the further uncertainty of having to beg for another delay beyond October 31st. It probably looks like they were going to have to at this point, or just pull Article 50. But the French have already said that they don't want to extend it, and this is Macron's government, because they've just had it with us, to be honest. And it's our fault, not the European Union's fault in this. And if we do end up in a no-deal scenario, this will be the fault of Brexiteers and no one else. It will not be the fault of the hidden Remainers hiding in the cabinet, because the people who have been at the helm to negotiate this, to negotiate with the withdrawal agreement, have been Brexiteers. So this is no one's fault except the Brexiteers. They were handed an opportunity and they have failed because they pushed further and further, because they wanted to push their ideology further, and that's what it became, ideologically driven. And that is where we are now, stuck in an ideologically driven corner in a position that no one voted for and that no one in the country wants. Parliament does not want a no-deal Brexit and will vote it down. In the series of indicative votes, it only got 63 votes. So That will not happen. And if necessary, Parliament will revoke Article 50, and Theresa May, as the Prime Minister, even the caretaker Prime Minister, she can still revoke Article 50. So that's Nigel Farage's letter. It's basically a massive puff piece, essentially, and you see the idea there of, oh, if this had been an election, we'd have 240 MPs. Basically, trying to, once again, to force the Conservative Party into a position that he wants. And this tiny percentage of the that the Conservative Party actually wants, which the vast majority of them don't. And thus it shows you that, once again, Brexit was all about the split in the Conservative Party.